Stewie2k is one of the greatest Counter-Strike players in North American history, but I'm sure you already knew that. What you might not know is after all of his success, things would start to go downhill incredibly quickly. Post-Liquid era Stewie would commit crimes such as having an incredibly inflated ego, single-handedly blowing up the team that was supposed to revive NACS, recent accusations that he scammed a trader out of up to $25,000 to $30,000 due to a gambling addiction, and maybe the worst of all, he played Valorant. I won't dive too deeply into the Stewie2k story, as I'm sure you've heard of it by now, but I will go over it semi-briefly. After dominating an ESEA pug, Stewie would be picked up by Cloud9 at the start of 2016. This was looked at as being an incredibly risky move as he had no experience at the tier 1 level, and his playstyle was seen as being very fluky. Look at these comments from when he first signed. Welp, guess Liquid is gonna dominate the NA scene, rip C9. I'm gonna enjoy watching Liquid destroy these jokers, plus 1000 same. I'm gonna enjoy watching LG destroy these jokers. I'm gonna enjoy watching entire EU destroy these jokers. Rip NA scene, this blows. Stewie would of course go on to prove everyone wrong, playing so well that he would end up getting accused of cheating shortly after joining the team. Then Cloud9 would go on to win 3 tournaments plus a major title. You knew I was gonna have to mention it at some point. I have at least one quota of mentioning the Boston major per video. Anyways, prior to joining, Cloud9 had never won an international LAN before, and during his time there, they won 4. And after he'd leave for SK in 2018, they'd never win another one as a North American roster. Stewie's decision to leave the recent major winner Cloud9 for Brazilian giant SK had landed him in quite a bit of backlash with the NA fans. Some called him a snake, and others thought he was betraying the region that he had just started helping build up. But then of course this is Stewie2k we're talking about. Negativity was nothing that he wasn't already used to. On SK, he'd go on to bully Taz in the final of Zotac Cup Masters 2018 Grand Finals, but that would be the only tournament this team would win. It was mostly looked at as a failure, and after only 9 months, Stewie would be benched and leave for Team Liquid. Liquid with Stewie in 2019 were absolutely dominant, as they'd go on to win 7 trophies this year along with an Intel Grand Slam. If it wasn't for Astralis being fucking goated around this time period, they'd probably also win the major, but alas. Unfortunately for Stewie and Liquid though, things would start to cool down around the end of 2019, as in their last few tournaments they'd come in 2nd, 5th to 6th, and 2nd again. Then COVID hit in 2020, and they'd go on to win only 1 tournament all year. During 2020, Nitro and Twist would be benched and replaced with Grim and Fallen, Stewie's old IGL. This is when things would really start to begin to turn sour.
And Navi have bailed themselves out of rocky waters. A 6-5 lead.
But the round where I ran up mid, I think we had a little discussion, me and Fallen on the ramp. You know, it felt like he didn't know what he was doing, and I gave some words back. And, you know, that's like the name of the game for Liquid. You know, you say one little thing that's wrong, and all of a sudden it just somehow snowballs, and people, like, it goes downhill for everybody. So
the team with Grim and Fallen just didn't work at all, as they would go on to win CS Summit in 2021, but nothing else, and completely missing out on the Stockholm Major playoffs. And shortly after this, Stewie would be benched. His time on Liquid can be looked on fondly, as 2019 was a absolutely monstrous year, probably the best year in NA history. But as things would start to taper off, the team would begin to unravel. Let's take a look at something real quick. If you look at Liquid's trophy count, before Stewie joined, the org had a total of 2. Afterwards, if you include the Intel Grand Slam, they would go up to 11. And since Stewie has left, Liquid has not won another event. Even if we go back and look at MIBR, the only event on their entire HLTV page is with Stewie, and they have not won 1 cent. This means 2 things. Stewie is a fucking dog, man, okay? No matter what any of the outside noise was, this guy just knew how to win tournaments. Being a winner was just in his blood. He wasn't out here dropping 1.8 ratings. He wasn't a top 20 player of the year. He just was, at his core, he was just a winner. But the other thing, the teams he was on would have success, but after he would leave, they would seem to crumble completely. And the community was kind of starting to look at him as a team killer. Barmlings, due to my inventory now being worth 3 bags of Doritos and a paperclip, now might quite literally be the best time in years to get that new combo you've always wanted. And why not do it with today's sponsor, Skins Monkey? Skins Monkey is an instant trading site with an incredibly large selection of skins, low commission, and an easy search filter system. Buying or trading upgrading your skins has never been easier. And if you use my link today, you can get up to $5 completely free. They also have daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways on their freebies tab, along with a 35% deposit bonus if you use code Garmour. You can get your new knife currently on a crazy discount along with a 35% deposit bonus. At this point, it's basically free. Check out Skins Monkey today with the link in the description or the QR code, and back to the video. If we go all the way back to 2018, and I've talked about this multiple times on my channel, Cloud9 going into that Boston Major was basically a dead team, and even directly after they won it, the internal issues did not go away at all. The Cloud9 CEO stated, even after winning, there were players that were upset. They didn't feel like they were getting the recognition they should, and there was already a huge cloud over the future of the team. Out of Skadoodle, Tarek, Rush, Automatic, and Stewie, who do you think was upset that they weren't getting enough credit for the major win? I'll leave that with you. I'll let you think on it. Along with this, SK originally wanted Automatic and Stewie to join their team. Automatic wanted to be loyal, and he stayed. And at the same time, Skadoodle would take a break, which he probably was going to do anyway, so I don't really blame Stewie for that. But eventually, Tarek would follow Stewie to MIBR, and that would pretty much be the end of Cloud9 for the foreseeable future. They completely crumbled and wouldn't really be fixed until 4 years later, where they just bought the Gambit roster, which, I mean, I don't even count that. I personally believe that Cloud9 team could have survived a lot longer than they did, but internal issues were causing rifts within the team for months leading up to Boston. And I mean, we don't really know any of the inside information on what was really causing that, and honestly, we probably never will. But from future events where we learn about Stewie's ego and behavioral issues, all we can really do is guess who the driving force behind it was. Now, going into SK/MIBR, I don't really think that was Stewie's fault. He should have just never made the move in the first place. I know hindsight is obviously 2020, but let me explain. On paper, this move is fantastic, but when you step back and think about it a little bit more, communication was always going to be an issue. And like, sure, if you look at Furia today, you say, well, I mean, it could have worked, but I think there is a little bit more to this. That core back in 2018 already had so much success just being a full Brazilian team. They were off the back of 2 major wins just 2 years ago, and Stewie plus Tarek had just won the Boston Major. It was pretty obvious not a single player on this team was okay with just being mediocre, and they would need damn near instant success, or otherwise issues were gonna begin to surface. And once this instant success did not happen, the team was simply cooked. And the Brazilian guys at that point are just gonna say, I mean, you know, we just want to be comfortable communicating in our native language. They did just win 8 trophies in 2017. They were still a very good core. So I mean, this move always just had a timer on it. It wasn't gonna last long if things didn't click immediately. Plus, a Stewie plus Fallen combo didn't really seem to make sense. And we would get some more insight into this when Stewie's future teammate Twist would say, I feel like Stewie and Tarek's playstyles have changed in a pretty negative way. They seem lost because they are forced to play passive and in an actual system, whereas in Cloud9, I don't even think they had a system, if they followed it. I think it really damaged their individual playstyle joining this team, talking about MIBR, which makes it all the weirder when Fallen was the guy to join Liquid in 2020. Up to the collapse of Team Liquid, all of Stewie's issues were mostly kept under wraps. Sure, there were like some rumors of him being toxic, but nothing really that we could see. But after Team Liquid would start to sink more and more into mediocrity, his frustrations would begin to boil over, and we would see them actually happening at tournaments.
A 6-5 lead. But
during Fallen's time in Team Liquid, him and Stewie would switch the IGL role multiple times. And it came out that a part of the reason for this was Stewie and Alicia just didn't like Fallen's system at all. Hey man, if only there was a way to foresee this. It would be so great if they played on a team together and it already didn't work. But alas, sometimes you just aren't that lucky. But Stewie would go on to say, when Fallen came in, he came in a little behind on the meta. And for us, Liquid had an identity, a foundation. When you see Liquid play, they have a certain style. And it's what represents Liquid throughout all of these years, even before I joined. The thing that stood out to me the best is that they always play together, and their trade percentages are always one of the best up there. When Fallen joined, I think that he wanted to implement his system completely, and for me, I felt like that was not the best idea ever, because Liquid always had this identity, where they would always play trades. That's their strong suit. So we always tried to implement some things. We tried to work together, and put Liquid and what Fallen works with well together, mesh it all in one. I had a lot of disagreements with him, and Elige did as well. Before Fallen joined, we really needed people to step up to the plate, be a leader, act as a leader. Some just can't. The personalities, you can't really change it, and you can't expect changes so quick. So that's something that we struggled on, and why we needed a player like Fallen. Once we added him in, Fallen always thought that I had a good mind and that I surprised him a little bit in the IGL role. So maybe I should go back to calling so that he can have his freedom where he can just op and focus on his game. Maybe he can take a little bit away from what I'm calling, what I can see that he can't see. That's why we made the swap back and forth. Then eventually I was struggling a little bit and people liked the way that Fallen was calling again. So we decided that maybe Fallen can just have his shot again. And this time we're really gonna let him implement his style. For me, I think that letting him do all of it created a lot of extra problems that a lot of us didn't agree with inside of the game. And we tried to work it out, but with the amount of personalities that we have and so many clashes, it's hard to come down to an agreement and settle on something. Along with having flashes with Fallen, he would also speak on the team's young new player Grim, saying, "The thing about Grim is that he's a great kid. I think his work ethic can be a lot better. He can work a lot harder from where he is as a player and where he stands right now. With the amount of inexperience, the amount of times you really have to hold his hand and guide him to the right areas, he's not really learning on his own." Initially, Grim was not in roster talks before we picked him up. We weren't able to get the roster that we wanted, and we were stuck with missing a 5th player, so we really needed one to stand in. For us, Grim was on a trial phase, and for me, I felt like it was kind of forced to our roster. I think he just came in at the wrong time, the wrong place, and it wasn't the best experience for him, but I'm sure he definitely learned a lot from us and just being able to play internationally. Grim in general, he's like any type of up-and-coming player. I've talked about it on stream before, where all of these up-and-coming players, all they really have is aim. And initially when Grim was put into our roster and we needed to use him, I was not okay with it because I did not want to waste my time hoping that this player can pick it up fast, learn, and become this experienced player that we really need. So for us, we kind of struggled. It brought in another set of problems that shied us away from focusing on the core's problems. That added an extra problem for us. So it seems that the Fallen edition was not a good move for Stewie. The Grim edition was not a good move for Stewie. But did they even care at all about what Stewie wanted in this team? Like, he had to have had some say. And I do also want to state that, like, I don't think he's being a dick here. He's just being blunt. It's what he's always been his entire career. So I don't overly have an issue with what he's saying about Grim. It's just kind of all there to say. There were big issues in Liquid, and Stewie was not happy. It just seemed like there was never really a time period where they were all on the same page post 2019. And maybe the most unfortunate part is how all of this frustration boiled over onto his next team. After Stewie would leave Team Liquid, he joined Evil Geniuses at the start of 2022. Along with this, after switching the IGL role back and forth with Fallen, he decided he was just going to be the full-time IGL of this team. They were going to play in the style that he fully believed in, and he'd be reuniting with his 2 old Cloud9 teammates in Automatic and Rush. The other 2 on the roster would be Cirque and Breeze. On paper, this team should have been insane. They should have been the revival of NACS. But instead, in their first match, they would have a 2.11 rating dropped on them by Apex. It does not get any worse than that, let me tell you what. Under Stewie's leadership, they would win a total of 3 LANs. Sorry, I mean a total of 3 series on LAN. Those were against 9Z, OO Nation, and Party Astronauts. Those were the only 3 series they won. They were just absolutely awful. Bombing out in last place of events, and not even making it through tournament qualifiers. Stewie would end up having a 0.88 rating on LAN, and after 6 months, the team would completely collapse. After this is when we'd finally get an in-depth look at what Stewie was like behind the scenes. After a few months, the coaching staff of EG would be removed, and the assistant staff, EV, would go on to sit down for an interview. He'd go on to say, "When I was at G2, at first I had to work with Kenny S. The first night he came to me privately on TeamSpeak and said, 'I know we're going to work together. Here's my number. Call me anytime and we'll do what you want.'" So compared to EG, when I arrived, I expected the same mindset. When we met the first night at a restaurant, I heard some things like, "My vision of a coach is a guy who doesn't have the reins and just assists. The American mentality is that the coach is a yes man and gets paid X thousands to say yes. Nice guys." From the first night, I said to myself, watch out, red flag. He would then also go on to say that there were some key concerns with how Stewie was treating head coach Malik. EG had made it clear through Damien that he would have the reins. He'd have the ability to change players, establish his system, etc. But the first day of practice, Damien and I look at each other and we are shocked. To make it simple, in terms of attitude, it looked like a face-it game. And we didn't understand why Stewie didn't give his death cam. He didn't communicate all of the time. He was in fun mode. He raged a bit. And the very next morning, we had this discussion explaining what we had seen was not right. And from there, it was already over. Stewie wouldn't say hello to Damien when he walked into the room from the 5th or 6th day. When Damien spoke, Stewie turned his back to his PC. He wasn't listening to him. Sometimes Stewie would listen to Damien and then turn back around and not respond. One of the worst things I ever saw was Stewie denying tactical breaks. Damien would call tactical breaks and Stewie would say no. This is something I've never seen, and it happened from the first official game. Damien and I looked at each other and we didn't understand. Then at the end of ESL Pro League, After EG would come in last place, the players would go up to the assistant coach and say, Stewie's attitude is not okay. And in the interview, he would state, bro, we've been telling you that since day 2. All the warning lights were on and nobody listened to us. The plane crashed. See ya. Eventually, it would begin to take a toll on the main coach, Malik. A lot of things were wrong, and Damien lost it and simply said, stop, you are doing shit. Now do what I asked you to do. This is not normal, etc. He had been right for 6 months, and when he stood up and demanded that they stop bullshitting him, it was over. EG would need to choose Stewie or Malik, and in the end, they would choose Stewie. Stewie would go on to respond to these accusations on Twitter, and then fully clarify in a 1.5 hour long stream. I'll address it now, and I'll address it in the end. I know my attitude is not the best. I am a guy who does not like to lose. I will win in any other condition. I will do anything to win. Anyone who has been watching me, anyone who has played on my team knows that. They know that winning is everything to me. I do understand that my attitude does get in the way, and at times when it is brought up, I notice it and I know I have to work on it. Even though it has been with me throughout my entire career, from the very beginning when I joined Cloud9, there are moments of good and bad, and I think that comes with a lot of players. Simple, Nico is like that, but we are different in our own ways. But on this specific day, we both lost our shit. For a guy who knows attitude can get in the way, I am aware of my being in tilt, and I'm aware of the effect it can have on my teammates. But after the second day, Malik brought it up to me and said, hey, it was not okay that you acted like this or said this. I kid you not, as a person who knows I tilt, it's my first day there and I'm happy to be there and I'm happy to play with the guys. I kid you not, I did not know one thing wrong that I did in terms of attitude, and I wanted to start fresh with everything that happened the year before. We went on a 45-minute argument that went nowhere and it didn't come to any understanding. Malik insisted on showing me the review to see that it was wrong. It was really bad. It got to the point where I couldn't see it and I had to ask my teammates. That little argument over Stewie's attitude on the first day had already put a cloud over the future of this team, and if the IGL and the coach couldn't even talk to each other and get along, it was always going to fail. But maybe even worse is after that argument, Malik wanted to go to Starbucks, saying, I don't want to talk about CS, I want to talk about life, I want to talk about you. But Stewie would decline, and in his stream, he would explain by saying, he's a total stranger for me, and I'm not on his wavelength of doing that. I understand his intentions of having a healthy relationship, and Malik being in a coaching role, but I'm not ready to move at that speed. Especially with no history between anybody, it needs to happen naturally and build over time. Stewie moved on to say that he understands Malik reaching out about the Starbucks thing was an attempt to mend what happened, but for Stewie, he just wanted to move on to CS and get back to what they were supposed to be talking about. In the end, Stewie felt like he was being watched 24/7. This is so weird to me. Like, just go to Starbucks, bro. At least try to mend the relationship, because now you're gonna both hold on to this grudge for the rest of your time together. And I mean, it looked like that's exactly what Stewie was doing. He would go on to say, I'm not blaming Malik for that situation. I'm just talking about what happened in the beginning. The argument that led it onto the wrong foot. It shouldn't have been an argument or a problem. The key thing is Malik didn't feel involved, but I didn't feel that was the case. We just couldn't move on from what happened that day. Moral of the story, EG was a complete disaster. And from this day forward, while still great, Stewie's legacy would be tattered forever. He'd be benched in EG after 6 months, and he would start streaming Valorant daily, looking to go pro. In January of 2023, he'd form an amateur team with Wardell and Swag, and in April he'd trial for Dark Zero, going on to not make the roster. Then in March of 2023, he'd abandon Valorant and announce he's available as a free agent in CS2. He'd play for Mythic for a little bit, then stand in for Legacy, before eventually standing in for G2 at IEM Dallas. And this event, let me tell you what, was magical and looked to be a great way to end Stewie's story. After the disaster of EG, he came into Dallas as a stand-in, and they won the whole goddamn thing. He seemingly still had that it factor in him to just be able to win tournaments. And even afterwards, there was some speculation maybe he would join G2 full-time or even another team, but that wouldn't end up happening. Maybe partially because after he stood in for G2, he went on stream to say some incredibly weird things about his time there.
People are talking, it feels a little tense in here, and like there's not a whole lot of fun going on. When people go over things, it's almost like a military type vibe, like where you got your general is explaining to you the day, and like he's running down the agenda of the day, and he's providing examples and everything. Everyone's watching, and it's like almost like it's one-man show, and like no one's really enjoying their time here. It kind of feels like a 9 to 5. People are clocking in, clocking out. And I know like the vibes like that, like it's not a real team. And times where I didn't know what was going on is my first few days there, and I can tell when Taz is speaking, there's not like a whole lot of like real attention on what he's saying.
A little ironic, don't you think? Anyways, nothing would happen for him the rest of 2024, and eventually in 2025, he would temporarily stand in for Wildcard, and that is the last team to this day that he's played for. Up to this point, he's been a streamer, and it seemed like we could close the book on the Stewie2k story. This is until it would get abruptly reopened on October 26, 2025. A trader known as Metalcat CS accused Stewie2k of scamming him out of around $30,000. This is a ginormous tweet thread that includes around 30 different tweets explaining the entire situation, but it basically boils down to this. There was a loan agreement between the two and a set deadline for when Stewie would pay Metal back. A few months go by and Metal eventually asks for his money back. He's then met with the EGIGL version of Stewie, making excuse after excuse as to why they need to set the deadline back, being condescending and arrogant the entire time. It was also found that multiple of the pictures Stewie used during this were faked. So after all of this would come out, it would leave us with a couple questions. Is Stewie just a straight up scammer now? Is this a Jacob situation where he's just a crippling gambling addict? Or I mean, those are like the only two options. I don't know what else this can possibly be. This is when people would start to uncover what might have started this entire thing. Stewie had made fucking bank back in 2020 online gambling.
That crazy amount. I've been up. I've gambled. Bro, I've gambled ever since I started during that time in COVID, bro, when I won the 100 grand. Ever since I won the 100 grand, I never went on that side again.
And immediately people are beginning to think, oh my god, this is what initially got him addicted in the first place. He is a crippling gambling addict. Stewie would then quickly respond on stream to this though.
I've loaned money to people too, but you gotta understand that loans comes with a danger in itself, and that doubt. Always. I mean, you kind of know what you sign up for. I'm grateful that he's willing to help, but he offered it, and I've literally offered everything I can. It's like we already agreed on everything. I don't even know why we're backtracking. It's like, backtracking for what though? Like, what do you want me to say? It's crazy. It could be done in 5 words, not a few hours. Bro, I mean, y'all keep bringing it up and shit. Like, you guys act like a simple 5 words is gonna persuade you guys. Bro, this guy gave me a date. I'm meeting it. Like, literally, I have 3,500 provided for him for proof. Like, bro, like, I'm legitimately waiting on this bitch. Told him, like, yo, it's on the 31st. We're going to meet the deadline. Bro, we're not even on the 31st. I'm waiting on it. And it's on before the date he gave, bro. What happened to all your play skins, like gloves and stuff? Man, you're stupid as shit, bro. Prove it. I'm not gambling the money. That's easy. Bro, how do you want me to prove that? I'm not gambling the money, bro. Like, dude, the money literally gets transferred. And most of one transfer dipped. Bro, I gathered what I could. This was him offering help. Bro, it's not... How's it to gamble, bro? Like, I literally have Skin Club. Bro, I didn't even know shit about this shit. I don't even do gambling. And we're in debt.
It wasn't very convincing, to be honest. And well, it would only get worse, like most of these situations do, as XQC would then come out and add to this. He would donate 4 high-tier skins to Stewie before IEM Dallas, and eventually realize, wait a minute, some of them had never been returned.
Hey, buddy. I gave him some skins so he could wear them during the major, and there was a few missing. I think 1 or 2. When they give him back my skins.
It was then found out that the gold arabesque that was donated to Stewie had been deposited into a gambling site.
And Stewie never sent it back to XQC. It went to this guy, Tonic, who was a random guy, but I added him and he accepted me. Now, when Oni pressed him, this is Stewie's response.
Sent it to another guy? Like, was it like sold or
by
accident?
I mean, I didn't sell it. That I can promise to God, I didn't sell it.
Let me reiterate with that. I can promise to God I didn't sell it. There you go. And I spoke to Tonic. And as you can see, if I click message, it will open up the real DMs. Hey, what's up? You bought an AK Gold Arabesque from Stewie, which was XQC's. Do you remember it? I bought it from Waxpeer for a really good price. Waxpeer is connected to gambling sites. And then he, at the bottom, shows me proof. He quick sold it. And as you can see, it's a 00 AK Gold Arabesque, which is $1,000 more than a normal Gold Arabesque.
And then after this, another claim would be made. At this point, it wasn't looking like just one case, but just a brutal pattern of scamming people out of money, skins, and crypto. So to try and save his reputation, Stewie would go on Onapixel's stream to try and explain himself, and it was an absolute fucking disaster.
Dragon Lord, but I didn't like deposit on any sites.
So what happened with the Dragon Lord?
Well, that I don't really have an answer for. I mean, I didn't deposit on a gambling site. I may have sold it. I mean, the Dragon Lord and everything, like GG and Eve waited, but I appreciate his patience, but I gave him the money back. He was willing to help me with the loan, and this was completely separate from the skins and everything. So I always seen this as a separate situation. So we all agreed November 13th. I didn't have a problem paying him back at the time from my sponsors, from my skin sponsors. I got confirmation that I was going to get re-upped on the same day and around the same time. So I get re-upped on the balance on the site itself, and I get payment in itself. I've sold to Mateo before, the same way, like a bayonet, maybe another item, and we've never had any issues. And it's been late too. Like, he's paid me, and maybe the date that I'm supposed to send it, I didn't send it like a week late. No, I mean, I've gambled money before, and I've gambled, and honestly, I don't even want to say for sure, but like, I probably gambled and traded in skins before, and all these things. Like, I don't know, but I've never had like a problem like that. Like, and like, I don't keep track of where.
I know. It's just.
But wait, time out. You said you don't deposit onto the sites, and the last time you gambled was the 100K win. No?
I stream every day. Like, I stream every day, 9, 10, 11 hours a day. Throughout these last 2 years, I've been helping my parents with their own financial battles, and they're coming at an old age where they're gonna retire soon. So a lot of my time and money has only been going to them and focused on them. Like, I don't like all this like speculation and all these accusations. For me, you can keep accusing me of those things, whatever.
He then would also go on to say in this stream that he only knew of Matao needing money, when we already know he didn't return all of XQC skins. We have this.
3 months, I was like, yo, where's my Dragon Lord? And then you completely like changed your narrative, and you were like, I passed it to my friend, and I was like, okay, can I get it back? And you said, yeah, in a week. And then after a week, I was like, so
Okay,
where's my Dragon Lord?
chill. Look.
Okay.
This was a long time ago, and you're gonna have to slow down for me. Like, I don't remember all of it. I don't gamble on Skin Club.
This roughly?
That was like, I got my money, I think like 6 months ago, but that was like a year and a half ago, because I had to DM every month to get my money, you know? It's a lot of money. And during that time, my skins went up in price, right? Like, during all that time, I just wanted my skins back, and my skins went up in price. Plus, I had like, my Dragon Lord had like stickers and shit that was adding like value, not that much, but still, you know, it was a Dragon Lord that I really liked.
And along with this, a tweet afterwards. Then a few days later, YouTuber Juicy would drop a bombshell to completely discredit nearly everything that Stewie said. He had been doing this to a lot more people than just Matao, and it looked like he owed up to $100,000-ish. This entire situation was just a complete mess, and at the end of the day, at least to me, it looks like a giant Ponzi scheme. But hey man, as we've seen, the scheme is at least somewhat functional, so props to you, I guess. But at the end of this story, we do have at least some good news, because while he may be a scammer and a Ponzi scheme creator, at least it was successful enough to get Matao Cat paid back. The full amount plus interest even, and Matao even deleted his old thread about Stewie. So, I mean, make of that what you will. At least one brother got his money back. Overall, Stewie could bomb a small village and it wouldn't really change his legacy in Counter-Strike. In the server, he knew how to win trophies. He was still a great player, but I don't think after all of this, anyone will truly be able to see Stewie2k the same. He was a hero in Boston. He won a Grand Slam with Liquid, but at the end of the day, that horrible EG tenure and his ego problems began to taint his legacy, and now with his Ponzi scheme ass crippling gambling addiction, it's only been tainted even further. And you can see from a lot of the DMs with people during this entire situation that his ego from EG never truly left him. So at least he's being true to himself. Anyways, that's all I got for you today, fellas. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, maybe liking the video, maybe subscribing to me, and maybe notificationing's on. Remember kids, if you end up being a washed Counter-Strike pro, don't turn into Stewie and Jacob.